All right, thank you so much. Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks everyone for having me. Hello, Kansas City. I'm here today to talk to you about a decade with DORA. Now, just a quick show of hands, how many of you know DORA? How about the Explorer? I just want everyone to raise their hand. All right, great. But before I talk about a decade with DORA, I want to take us back a little bit further than 10 years ago. In fact, I want to go back to kind of where this whole movement and this community started. I want to take us back to 2009. And at the Velocity conference in 2009, there were two gentlemen that gave a presentation called 10 Deploys Per Day, Dev and Ops Cooperation at Flickr. This was Paul Hammond and John Allspaw. At the time, in 2009, 10 deploys a day, people were angry. They were going nuts. That's absolutely irresponsible. You cannot do that. 10 deploys a day, you're out of your mind. Oh, wait, you're just a web startup. It's probably fine. But it will never work anywhere else. The point of their talk, though, was really introducing this idea that dev and ops work together. We work together to drive great business outcomes and great experiences for our customers. So that was the summer of 2009. Fast forward just a little bit. Let's go to October of 2009, and the very first instance of this conference was held. DevOpsDays was held in Ghent. It was put together by a guy named Patrick Dubois. I'll tell you later why he's not actually the founder of DevOps. I'll tell you later who the actual founder of DevOps is. But he was the first one to take those words dev and ops and put them together into a portmanteau. And now we have DevOps. So just a quick round of applause for Patrick for doing that. So hello, as Jeremy mentioned, my name is Nathen Harvey, and if you get bored during this talk, if you go to bit.ly/farmer-Nathen, you'll get to watch the video that he was just talking about. And that is a ridiculous video, but it might just make you laugh. So, but we're not here to talk about farming today, or even the history of DevOps in general. I want to talk to you about DORA. So what even is DORA? Really, DORA is this research program that's been running, well, I'll be honest, I'm a terrible mathematician. This talk is called A Decade with DORA. It's been going for more than a decade. So you can decide which decade I'm talking about. I'm not even sure. But DORA really stood out or came into being to kind of answer this question. How can we as an organization get the most value out of our investments in technology and in technologists? Out of the people in our organizations and the technology that we're using within our organizations. And in order to do that, we need to have a couple of things in place. First, we need a way to understand, well, how are we doing today? If we want to improve what we're getting, we have to know where we're starting from. So we need a way to assess how we're doing. Next, we need a way to prioritize what do we want to change. Because the truth is, all of us, as we sit down at our day job, or as you're sitting here thinking, you're probably just building up some stress, thinking, man, there are 1,000 things I need to get done. How do we prioritize that work? And not necessarily how do you prioritize your work, but as a team, how do we prioritize what should we work on next to make everything better? And as we have both of these things in place, we're also going to need a feedback mechanism so that we can understand how did the thing that we just changed, how did that impact our overall outcomes and goals? And probably most importantly, you're going to need the organizational culture and the institutional culture and organizational muscle to do this over and over and over again. And if you think about this sort of three-step process, this kind of applies to just about anything. You just pulled a story off of the board, and you're going to make that story. Well, let's understand how we're doing today. Let's make some changes, prioritize what we're going to do to deliver that story, and then get some feedback from our users. So it could be something very small. It could also be something very large. Imagine your VP comes to you and says, hey, man, I heard about this AI thing. It's all the rage. Can you go do more AI? Let's get more AI in here. You don't have enough AI. More AI, please. Well, great, but why? Why are we doing AI? Again, we need a way to assess sort of how we're doing before we inject AI into whatever it is, get that feedback loop going. All right, so this is kind of where DORA was born, but this is a decade with DORA, so I'm going to just give you a little bit of a history lesson here. The way that this all comes down, though, is DORA gives us the opportunity to get better at getting better. DORA is driving you and encouraging you and building this philosophy of continuous improvement. That's what DORA is all about. So, to our history lesson. As I mentioned, we start in 2009 with velocity, with DevOps. 2010 happens, this DevOps thing is starting to take hold kind of around the world. There are organizations everywhere putting it into place. In 2011, an employee at Puppet Labs, you heard of Puppet earlier in the infrastructure as code talk. Today the company is called Puppet, it's part of Perforce. Back then it was called Puppet Labs. There's a woman there, Alana Brown, who said, look, this movement is happening. Is it real? I know a way that we can find out. Let's run a survey across all of the world in a bunch of technical professionals and understand what's up. And so they released the first ever State of DevOps survey and then a State of DevOps report. And I know you can't read it, so I'm going to read it to you. It says, evolution of DevOps, emerging discipline or buzzword hype? I think we could ask that same question today, right? What is DevOps? Is it an emerging discipline or is it buzzword hype? I don't know. But one of the things that this report did was really, it just was the first survey to kind of understand what's happening in the space of DevOps. 2012 came along, and I'm a terrible historian also. 2012, there was a report. I can't find it, so I can't tell you what's in it because I don't remember. But 2013 came along, and this guy named Gene Kim, maybe you've heard of him, he got together with a couple of other co-collaborators, and he published the book, The Phoenix Project. If you've not read this book, this is the second book that you should read. I'm going to tell you the first book you should read later. Maybe this is the first one. I don't care. Read them in whatever order you like. How many of you have read The Phoenix Project? Just a quick, all right. How many of you are Brents? All right. Some of you have some good self-knowledge. Yeah, probably if you're in this room, you just might be a Brent. All right. 2013, also the first state, or the next State of DevOps report came out. One of the things that it said right at the beginning of this report, one of the biggest blockers to adoption of DevOps practices is cultural. And the best way to overcome some of those cultural blocks is to start a conversation. Sit down with someone on the other side. Go have coffee. Whether that person is in ops because you're a dev or in finance because you're a developer, build relationships within your organization. That was one of the biggest pieces of advice right at the beginning. I think that advice still holds today. 2014 came along, and a researcher, Dr. Nicole Forsgren, joined this effort. She saw the research that was happening and said, I've been researching this in academia. I want to move into industry, and I want to help you with this survey. So in 2014, they published the next State of DevOps report. The most interesting thing from this year's report, one of the things that they did in the survey, at the end of the survey, they said, hey, if you're open to it, because, by the way, the survey is always anonymous, so we never know who's taking the survey. But one of the questions in 2014 was, if you work at a public company, would you just give us your stock ticker? And what they did with that information then is they analyzed the market performance of every organization that said that they participated in the survey. And what they found was that those teams that were delivering software faster and safer had about a 50% higher market capitalization growth over the previous 3 years relative to those that were performing less well, that were delivering slower, were delivering less stable. So this was empirical evidence that we could say improving software delivery performance improves your business outcomes. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for, to drive our business forward, to serve our customers. Okay, 2015 comes along. There's another State of DevOps report. In 2015, we started looking into lean product management. And we said, look, speed is great, but remember, stability. We can't just move fast and break shit, as Mark Zuckerberg taught us. We have to move fast and move in a way that is stable. Next up, 2016. 2016, I have some notes here. Yes. My notes are terrible, hard to read. A couple of things happened in 2016. One of the things that was new here is we started asking about employees' experience. So we really started to look at developer productivity. That's another thing that you've probably heard about lately. How is AI going to solve my developer productivity? Well, again, we first have to define what do we mean by developer productivity. 2016 was also the first time that DORA became a thing. So DORA, DevOps Research and Assessment became a company and was collaborating together with Puppet to create these reports. In 2017, we looked at transformational leadership. Transformational leadership. What we found in the research was that leaders play a very important role in us adopting new technologies, adopting new practices, and driving our industry and our businesses forward. But the role that they play is not by tightening the grip. The role that they play, the most effective leaders, are those that give teams autonomy and give teams the time and space they need to learn, to improve, and because at the end of the day, it's us on the ground, the practitioners. We know best what hurts. We know best how to improve. The leader is there to support us and give us that cover. All right, now that we've reached 2017, there was one other thing that happened in 2017 before we get to that next piece. And that was that Dr. Nicole Forsgren, Jez Humble, and Gene Kim wrote a book. This is the first book you should put on your reading list, called Accelerate. Accelerate was the book that summarized all of the research up until this point. And it is a great read. I highly recommend it. I recommend it so much I travel with it. So if you want to page through it, you can't keep it, but there's a copy right up here on the front table. Speaking of, in the binder, there's a copy of every one of these reports that I'm talking about, too, if you want to page through that. It was fun printing, well, except the 2012 one, because, can't find it. All right, so Accelerate was all about how do we move forward? How do we drive in and respond to what's happening within the industry? The other thing that we did in the Accelerate book was we clearly defined those 4 measures of software delivery performance. We said, look, if you want to understand how you're delivering software, we have to have a way to measure it. We've identified through our research these 4 metrics: lead time, deployment frequency, mean time to restore, and change fail percentage. Here's the problem with the book, though. Those 4 measures show up on page 17. A lot of people got to page 17 and said, that's what this book is telling me, and they put down the book and walked away. I got it. If we just do better at that, everything will get better, right? The challenge, though, is what we need you to do is read all the way through to Appendix A. Appendix A is where the magic happens. So this is what we call, or what is called, a structural equation model. That's a data analyst thing. I'm not one of those. But what this is telling us is that certain capabilities predict or drive those performance outcomes that you want. So when you think about how does my team get better, how do we prioritize, we have to look at the capabilities that might be holding us back. All right, we're back from the book, back to our timeline, but we're about to hit another fork in the road. So the fork in the road is this. DORA was formed as a company. Puppet Labs was the company that started this software State of DevOps report research and so forth. They were collaborating, but in 2017, they kind of split ways. So today, this year, Puppet Labs, or Puppet, put out a State of DevOps report. And this year, DORA will put out a State of DevOps report. In fact, if you look and search on the internet, you will find probably 15 different State of DevOps reports available to you. I'm here mostly to focus on the DORA ones. So in 2018, the Accelerate State of DevOps report came out, and that's how we differentiate ourselves. We put Accelerate at the beginning of it. But this one was interesting because we said, look, software delivery performance and the stability of those changes, that's important. But what about the running services? We need to start thinking about availability. How do we keep promises that we've made to our customers about how our services are going to work? We also started looking at cloud, and how did cloud impact software delivery performance and a team's ability to improve. Later on in 2018, Google Cloud acquired the company called DORA. Now, at Google, where I work today, this research has continued. We continue to maintain the program and platform agnostic approach to the research, the anonymous surveys, and so forth. In 2019, we published the next report, and this one looked at, again, deeper into developer productivity, and also how do you take these ideas and scale them across your organization. More on that in a bit. And then 2020 happened. Y'all remember 2020? I'd like to forget it also. So it's just kind of a dark period for all of us. So we didn't publish a State of DevOps report. There was nothing to report in 2020. We did, though, never fear, we did put out some publication. In fact, probably, I went a little bit too far, probably one of the most underutilized reports that the DORA team has ever put out. And this is a white paper called The ROI of a DevOps Transformation. What this white paper gives you is some formulas that you can use when you go and talk to your executives, when you go and talk to the finance teams, that give you a monetary reason to talk about why it's better for us to ship more frequently, why it's better for us to reduce the outages that we have, why it's better to ship more stable software. So I definitely recommend checking out that ROI guide. 2021 came along. A new researcher took over the program. So Dr. Nicole Forsgren left. Dr. Dustin Smith came in to run the research for that year. And in 2021, we looked at SRE. So DORA has been within Google. Google's been talking to the industry about SRE for years, and SRE works really well at Google, but we didn't have any data that told us how's it going across the industry. So we went out and we asked the industry. What we found, no surprise to anyone in this room, I suppose, DevOps and SRE are not which one. They are complementary. They work very well together, and together they're what improve team performance and organizational performance. The other thing that started in this year, though, in 2021, was we started looking at documentation and the power of documentation and how do teams get better at managing and incentivizing keeping your documentation up to date. That research has continued for 3 or 4 years now, and really interesting findings there. Okay, moving on to 2022, another researcher took over the program, Derek DeBellis. I don't think he's a doctor. Derek, if you're a doctor, I'm sorry. So Derek took over. He's still our lead researcher on the program. 2022 report came out. There was a heavy emphasis on security, because security. Guess what drives security? It's culture. Cultural practices in the organization was the #1 predictor of better security practices. In 2022, we also launched the DORA community. My team and I go out and we talk about this research all the time. We help teams try to put it into practice, and we get asked lots and lots of questions. I'm tired of answering those questions, because actually I don't have all of the answers. So we saw this opportunity to bring together a global community of practitioners, researchers, and leaders that are all trying to use this stuff. I invite you to join that. Maybe I'll share a URL later. I'm not sure. So as we were listening to the community, though, we started to hear some really great feedback about how they were interpreting the research, how they were trying to use it. And I just want to go back to that SEM. Remember that SEM that I showed you, that structural equation model from the Accelerate book? Well, that's really great. It tells us kind of where should we focus. One of the challenges, though, is that each year in the report, we publish a different SEM. And each year, we're investigating different things. So it's never quite clear, like, okay, but you told me I should focus on this last year, now there's other capabilities this year. We needed some way to kind of take all of those SEMs and kind of smush them all together. But when you smush them all together, now it becomes illegible. You don't even know what to do. So in 2023, we launched what we call DORA Core. And DORA Core is this idea that let's try to boil all of this down. Look, what we've shown through our research is that capabilities that a team has predict the performance that they're going to have, which then predicts the outcomes that they're going to get. Well, that's too simple. That doesn't really tell you what to do or where you should focus. So instead, we also introduced the capabilities that we've investigated multiple times and we've seen have actually led to good improvements for teams. All right, back to our timeline. We published a 2023 report. Let's see. Yep, there it is, the 2023 report. I'll talk about what that one had, 2023. First things first, focus on your user. We're thinking about things like platform engineering, like how do we deliver better software faster. If you're delivering software and not considering who your users are, you're not going to do so well. We found that teams that focus on users and user feedback and user satisfaction and are really centered on their users, that 40% better organizational performance and 20% higher job satisfaction. So go do that. We also looked at AI, of course. And what we found in 2023, so last year, when it comes to AI, what we found was teams that were using AI didn't see any real improvements in their software delivery performance or any real improvements in their organizational performance either. We hypothesized that we should put a comma yet at the end of that sentence, but we don't know. We'll find out this year. But what teams did find, teams that were using AI, tended to have better well-being on the team. So more job satisfaction, less burnout. This makes good sense. It's a new tool. I get to play with a new thing, get to experiment, get to check it out. That's fun. We're making work fun again with AI. So that's what we found. More to come, hopefully, in 2024. All right. So that's a quick history. You're like, that wasn't quick, Nathan. What's going on? All right, so DORA. I have a little challenge with DORA. Look, over the years, we've made mistakes. We've learned some things. First up, the name, DORA. DORA is a great name. I love the name DORA. But what does it stand for? It stands for DevOps Research and Assessment. And you know what? When we name it that, we kind of self-select. DevOps teams, DevOps engineers think we should participate in this research. This is for me. But the truth is, the things that we found are broadly applicable to any organization, any technology-driven team. So I'm on a mission to get rid of the acronym. We're de-acronyming it. DORA stands for DORA. It doesn't stand for anything. No. It stands for something. It stands for improving technology-driven teams and helping them get better at getting better. All right, I want to come back to those 4 metrics really quickly because this is some of the things that we've learned and revalidated over the years. First, if you're paying very close attention, you'll notice that 4th metric changed a little bit. See me at lunch and I'll describe how it changed and why and all of that. But we have 4 metrics, 2 that look at stability and 2 that look at throughput. Here's the thing. These metrics, you think about them at the level of your application or service that you're working on. And what we've found over the years is that throughput and stability are not trade-offs of one another, although that's what we tend to think of them. We can either be fast or we can be stable. The truth is they reinforce each other. If you want to have stable changes in production, you have to be able to do that quickly, because when something breaks, you have to be able to remediate it quickly. And as you improve your stability, you're going to be able to improve your throughput. These two feed one another. And one of the most important or most often questions I get is, okay, 4 metrics, that seems easy. I think I can measure those. I got systems that will tell me that data. How I can put them on a dashboard, right? Yes, you can, but the best way to measure them is through a conversation. Just go over to dora.dev and take the DORA quick check. So at dora.dev/quick check, you'll find, well, as it says, the DORA quick check. It will ask you, what is your experience with those throughput metrics and those stability metrics? This is the best place to start, because the whole point of metrics is to start a conversation. Let's understand where we are and have a conversation about what are we going to do next. Now, if that's not enough for you, you might say, but we've got lots of different tools and I can just integrate them all together. Please don't. Please don't just integrate them all together, at least not on your own. There are 1 or 2 vendors out there that will offer you solutions. Some of these are commercial, some of these are open source. None of these am I telling you should go buy. I just throw them all up on the slide just to say that, look, this is a real thing. Every executive, every organization wants to know, how productive are our teams being? And how do we measure that productivity so that we can improve it? And those DORA 4 metrics are a great place to start. They are not enough, but don't integrate your systems by hand. Go use a tool that's out there. All right. Over the years, this is the most important finding. Culture is the cornerstone. Without the right culture in place, you cannot succeed. It doesn't matter what tools you bring in. It doesn't matter what processes you have. You have to have a good culture in place. What does a good culture look like? We looked to a researcher named Ron Westrom. He put together this topology of organizational cultures. This is one of the most often pictured slides that I ever present, because you look at this and you see, oh, there's a power-oriented, there's a rule-oriented, there's a performance-oriented teams. Yeah, I know where I sit there. You've worked on each one of these teams, hopefully, probably in the past. Hopefully today, you're working more towards the right-hand side. All right. The most important thing to take away from this, though, and the most important thing to take away from the research, is that you improve by doing work that alleviates constraints on your teams. We've shown through our research that performance, software delivery performance, and operational performance drive great outcomes. Things like organizational performance and well-being of your team. And the way that you get better software delivery performance and better operational performance is through the capabilities that you invest in. Capabilities like shipping smaller changes, getting fast feedback on those changes, and working in a climate for learning. And the fact that you're here today is a testament that your employer invests at least a little bit in a climate for learning, so that's good. Use that advice to find which capability is holding your team back. Decide to change something here. Whether it's continuous integration or automated testing or your change approval process or the culture's just bad, make those investments in improving. Continuous improvement is the name of the game. And here's the thing. When you're on this journey of continuous improvement, I guarantee you're going to fail. Things are going to go wrong. But I can almost guarantee that things are going to succeed as well. And whether it's a failure or a success, I invite you to change your mindset. Both of those are successes. As long as you take the lessons learned from each, put them into practice in the next things that you're going to do. The way that you transform, you use communities of practice, and as you're changing things, I want to warn you about this J-curve. We've demonstrated this many times in our research for many different practices. When you try something new, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to take off those low-hanging fruit and you're going to see some immediate improvement, and everything's going to feel great. But then things are going to get difficult, and you're going to fall down into this dip where things get hard and you have to change things in a more meaningful way. And oftentimes what happens is it's at that point that we give up. Don't give up. There's still good to come, but you have to have the commitment, and your leadership has to have the commitment to push through this, because on the other side, you're really going to improve. I am now 1 minute and 45 seconds over time. Well-being is super important. This is not just about how do we deliver software faster. It's about how do we do it sustainably for the people in this room and the people that you work with. That's it. Last thing, and then I'll go to questions. Please take 15 minutes to invest in yourself and in your team. Take this year's DORA survey, not so that I can have the data. I want you to take the survey because reflecting on the questions that we ask is going to give you some insights about where are we doing well today, where are we struggling today, and most importantly, as a team, what will we do next? With that, I want to say thank you so much for having me. I'll be here all day. Thank you.
Thank you.